quick round of introduction, like, less than 30 seconds, say who you are, what company, and maybe, yeah, just let's do that, to do that really quickly and jump into the content.
Hi, I'm Shachar, founder and CEO of Arado, and this is a very biased group, as you can see on stage. White-haired white man, sorry.
Yeah. Some have white hair, yes.
Some don't at all. More context beyond that?
Yeah,
what we
just
do?
like the one sentence, what does Arato do? And then
Arado is an AI management system. We help organizations manage the entire process from building their AI agents all the way through deploying to production, validating they comply with whether corporate or government regulations.
Hi, Jonathan Gilmore, co-founder and CEO at Deepflow. We do human AI orchestration, which is a fancy way of saying we pass semi-completed slice of work from people to models and back again.
Hi, I'm Sonen, product manager. I've been at Google building AI solutions for enterprise, and now I'm part of a startup called Kaiko that does AI solutions for clinicians.
And my name is Thijs. I'm the founding head of product at Relay.app, and we're an AI automation tool. That's the easiest way to create AI agents and AI workflows, even if you don't know anything about JSON or never heard about it.
And I'm Boris, one of the co-founders of Logicstar.ai. We're building the future of self-healing applications, which pretty much means we're freeing up developers from having to maintain and fix issues in their applications so they can focus on more important things.
Excellent. Yeah, so we'll try to keep it open, and like, if you have something, jump in and don't wait. I will call on some of you to kick start stuff, but please, just think what I would do. Yeah. So let's start with the reality check and maybe start with you, Solen. And what are some repeated patterns that you have been seeing that have been causing teams to be less successful than they would have liked, or for projects to miss their goals in the AI space, of course?
Yeah, I think a few things, maybe to focus on two aspects. The first one is always thinking that the best model is going to help you to achieve everything. Actually, you can do a lot with maybe not the best model, but a good enough model that is connected to good data and tools. So this is something that I've seen a lot, like trying to wait or like accept the best model and then missing the opportunity to launch something quickly and learn from it. So don't wait too much, keep building and iterating and trying to achieve your goal. And the second mistake, I think I talked a lot about it if you attended my call, but it's not investing enough in evaluation and quality, and especially as a product team being involved and working closely with the engineering team to figure out what are the exact prompts we want to optimize for, what are the evaluation criteria we want to design and measure and hill climb on this, and making sure this is kind of a way to guide the team as well.
Shachar, you've been seeing evals and tests and stuff.
Yeah, I think even before evals, I think the biggest misconception is that people kind of treat AI still kind of as magic. The first interaction we got with AI, generally speaking, audience, I'm putting aside kind of the data scientists who've been doing ML for many, many years, is with ChatGPT. You put a prompt in, you get a response, and it feels like magic. And then when they start incorporating AI into the products, they kind of expect it to behave the same way. It's like, I'm going to plug it in and magic will happen. And then, very quickly they feel like the magic's happening, and then they show it to their CEO. And then he's like, okay, when can we get into production? And then, excuse my French, shit hits the fan because it's nowhere close. It's not production ready. And they're now ready to fully commit to the process required of building something that relies on Gen AI and take it all the way. And it's building the evaluations and the data sets and testing and tuning and prompt engineering and context engineering. It's like pulling all these assets together and committing to the process all the way through. Most expect it to happen within days or weeks, but the process takes months to take something into production. And I think the biggest realization that's required is to understand that treating Gen AI as part of your new application, whatever that is not much different than how we develop the software development lifecycle. There's a process that needs to happen. So that is the biggest misconception. It's not a plug and play.
Interesting. Jonathan, curious, calling you out, like, you have this very interesting paradigm, which is also new, and I think that every time you, right, like when humans together, like where do you think, where do places work, where do people struggle? I assume that many of them come to you after they struggled or failed.
Yeah, 100%. I think most companies are approaching it as what can I automate? What can I process mine? What can I then hand off to this new system? And I think we take a much more balanced view, which is most workflows are kind of non-deterministic in that there's different outputs depending on different days or different quarters or even different tools. Even if you're using the same tool, sometimes it's a different output. And so really it's taking a more measured transition approach where the big factors are things like culture, allowing risk taking, canning results that half worked last quarter, but maybe they don't work the next quarter. And so I think the tools and the technology, they're only going to get better. Really, the thing to affect is the cultural reward incentive mechanism for people to have space to try things, to get them wrong, to work with a variety of tools, and then to stick with what's working and double down on it, but really be led by experiments.
Okay, unless someone wants to say, I'm happy to jump into, okay, where value is, and maybe we can start with you, Thijs. I think because, like you said, right, like the entry point is low, but that doesn't mean that the value is low. So curious, like, where do you see actually value delivered and how to get there the best way?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. What's also worth, I think, calling out is that there's different levels of at an organization where you can like deploy AI. So like our tool is really like at the individual like knowledge worker level. So like we believe that like in addition to tools like ChatGPT, an AI automation tool over the next like decade will become kind of like a tool like a spreadsheet, like everybody uses at a day-to-day basis. So in our case, what we also see is that there's like value across like a couple of dimensions. So we first see that like people are creating like agents and AI workflows for like their individual productivity. So there's things like, agents that help you prepare for meetings, follow up after meetings, or, stuff like that. But then there's also workflows that like individual teams are making, like the end users, but they really provide value at the team level. So for example, like what we see many marketing and sales teams do is like lead qualifier workflows or agents that like when a new lead comes in, whether it's via like, Facebook ads or like just a form on your website, there's like a piece of AI that qualifies like how qualified is this lead and what should we do as a follow-up. And I think that's a very clear pattern that we see these two axes. And on top of that, what we're also seeing is that like in many of these cases, AI is kind of like supercharging something that people already did. So like, for example, lead qualification, of course, was done like before AI, but this is like why we see like so many sales teams and marketing teams coming to these AI tools because they see like, oh, AI can do this so much more efficient than like people. So they're supercharging that existing process. But then there's the other examples like, meeting briefings or like weekly, customer success analyses. These are things that maybe many people didn't do because it was just way too like resource intense to do manually. And that really unlocks, is really unlocked with AI.
Very good. Curious, like, what do you see, Boris? Like you come to it from a specific angle of healing code, but which use cases, again, if people want to do it, which use cases are better than other, where to start, what have you seen, like the same way, expected and unexpected value?
Yeah, it is a good question. In our specific use case, in terms of maintaining software application, we've seen a couple of kind of the top two, I would say, places is being able to identify net new problems. This is kind of from a preventative perspective, kind of that will almost obviously would have caused a serious problem eventually. And the secondary thinking is automatically fixing and dealing with a decent portion of the issues coming from observability systems. Like that there is a real problem already happened. Now can you fix it very actively, right? So I think this is where we're seeing a lot of people getting value. We've seen ourselves even that some of the AI coding assistant tools don't really help because we've seen, okay, we get much more output, like more code is generated. But then when we have to deal with the fact that it's noisy, it has issues, and it has to be fixed shortly after or amended, that actually causes net negative. So we actually had to unsubscribe for some of the tools that we actually started using ourselves even.
So curious, are we, where is the direction of the graph? Are people trying to start now from very complex use cases and going down to much simpler? Are we still going down, or actually are we seeing people go fast up? We are, like, curious, you know, what you guys are doing. Starting with you, Jonathan, because you are like already in a very complex world. Like, curious, where do people start? Where do they end? Like, and how long does it take? And how does usually the dynamics?
Yeah, I think in sales decisions, people are looking for certainty, right? Can this be done with this tool? And can this not be done with a different tool? And actually, I think Gen AI, a lot like people, is going to get things done 67% correct, good first draft, or maybe 74% for something else. And actually, it's about, again, taking that holistic view of, is it good enough that it saved 3 work hours? We can actually pass it on to someone else in our team. And to that extent, you can actually stitch up from the bottom, where you're trying something in marketing, you're trying something in bug reviews, you're trying something else. But really, I guess one of the core insights we have at Deepflow is it's the human latency inside human agentic systems or human machine systems that's the blocker. You can have an agent that can do something in 30 seconds, but if it's then got to go through a review process for 3 days, you've really not gained anything. And so actually, it's kind of this middle management piece where you're stitching together some of the very early wins, and you're trying to make it work at the level of a system. That's really the stuff that I can see coming in 2026, this kind of big promise of agents that will do everything. Of course, they'll be able to do some things better than others. It's really starting to build maybe evals work, but evals that change day on day, week on week again. And so it's making it from task level, which is where I think AI works at the moment, and starting to get to the early bones of network level, where it's some people, some models, some agents.
Yeah. Shar, also curious, like, just like layer something else. How do you see, and in your discussion, what comes more, complexity or value? And how do you see, is that the balance? Do they go hand in hand?
I think in majority of use cases, what we're seeing is complexity is the type of conversation we're having. I think can think maybe of 3 cases where value was the key discussion point. By the way, where it's coming from a value and a clear business KPI, we're seeing much more success. It's driven from the top. You're willing to put resources. You know, the one example I can think of is a company we've been working with for 18 months. And their objective was, we need to increase margins. We got it cut off by, support representative. This is a business KPI coming from the board, coming from the CEO. And now we're going to put, enough resources and time. We're committing to this KPI. And so they're seeing success and value. In most cases, when we run into your organization, it's within the product engineering team. And then there's a lot of, it's complex here. Can we do this? Can't we do that? And I think, I don't have the statistics in my head, but in a lot of these cases, we start working with a company, and then after 6 months, they're kind of, raising their hands. It's too complicated. It's too costly. We didn't plan for it, and then they're walking out. So to your question, I think we're still in that going down to the simple use cases before they're starting to climb up. I think it was a year ago, maybe 10 months ago, I attended a conference in New York. I think it was Dell on stage. Don't hold me up. I don't know if I'm breaking any law here. But Dell was on stage and said they had 800 AI initiatives within the organization. They stopped them all and cut it down to 30. Because we can't take control over this. So I think we're still in that stage of how do we obtain control. The trailblazers are probably the ones that, the 1-2% outliers.
Yeah, speaking of trailblazers, I'll call you. So you work one of the crazy projects in the industry, the AI co-scientist. Can you say a little bit, how was where did it start? How did you travel up and down that path, right? People will hit it in 5 years.
Yeah, so this project started as a research paper that was published by a Google research team, and with really the goal to deploy this multi-agentic system to help with generating new hypotheses for drug discovery and drug repurposing. And the way they validated the hypothesis was really to work with academics and scientists and show them what the system was generated. And they get a lot of good feedback from the top institutions. And so they decided to publish the paper, get a lot of press, and then we got a lot of attention from also, pharma companies on how can we, get access to the system. And so we had to go through how do we actually turn this like technology into something that could be used by enterprise? How do we make it like product enterprise ready? And here become like all the challenges of bringing research to production, which involves aligning the use case and the business value, but also thinking about how do we scale the technology, how do we maintain the technology over time, because if we monetize it, we then need to commit, and it's so much harder to achieve. And this is why I think a lot of AI models from research are never getting to production and never being used, and this is probably a waste in like many different fields, because it's very hard to achieve this. And I think maybe also to comment on what you say, I think I could relate a lot of working a lot with enterprise and this like agentic uses. I could see that a lot of enterprise are investing a lot on like building this sexy agent use cases like sales, marketing, because it's easy to get a pilot running and get some good attention. Much harder to like get it into production, also because the ROI is like hard to like quantify. Where I have seen enterprise investing in use cases, for instance, in like predictive maintenance and like inventory and supply chain. Not sexy at all. They might not get an innovation award for this, but actually it's easier to justify the ROI and then easier to bring it into production. So I think maybe we might see this shift also next year of like use cases for agentic system that are less sexy but much more valuable for any enterprise.
Cool. So a lot of the success factor is actually in the mindset, in actually in commitment. I wonder, whether in automation, that to your point, that starts actually more narrow and then expands. Do you see what other are factors, or maybe it's the same factors for success or not success, and what type of orgs manage to take individual success into team level and org level success?
Yeah, it's for a big part, it's a mindset thing what we're seeing. But I think there's also two concrete things. So like one is, really like divide and conquer, like starting with something very focused and building a great like small solution for that, and from there expanding. Because one of the mistakes that we see, like at least these teams of ICs make, they've kind of like big dreams, like, run your whole business or team on AI. And a lot of that will ultimately be, or is already in some cases possible. But you still need to like start small in like building a common core and then iterating on that. And that's not always very natural for like more commercial teams, for example. Even though like in product development, that's more natural maybe. And then the other thing, I think what we're seeing is that like the teams that leverage like human in the loop constructs in the right way, they also get the most value out of it. Because like, AI is great and we want it to do everything autonomously, ideally, but there's many high stakes situations where you will want to verify as a human, like what is the output of the AI, and you'll want to be able to like either approve it or revise it manually or just send it back to the AI because it wasn't good enough. And building in these checkpoints in like your agents or your workflows is very important. And you can start with a bit like more checkpoints for the the highly critical use cases, and then over time reduce them if you get more trust. But that is something like the teams that do that well, they definitely get the most value out of it, and they also get most value more quickly.
Mm-hmm. So I would have actually to bottom line it before you, because each one, like, the people here sitting and saying, hey, should I deploy, this self-healing thing? Should I start telling my people to automate? Should I do like, my more complex stuff? Should I start actually, building? Can you say like in 1 minute, what are the prerequisites and the AI maturity that your product requires? And how long do you think it will take to see meaningful ROI, like really go out one after another? Yeah, let's start with Shachar here. Yeah. So Soren, you are like,
I'm not sure I had enough time to think about a good answer here. I think if I had to break it down into stages of maturity, stage 1 kind of being, just people are playing around with AI, probably you have no value there. I think once you move to stage 2, you're kind of honing in on several projects, then you start getting value because you need to understand what works, what doesn't work. You get into these iteration phases. Stage 3, you're getting into kind of, okay, I'm experimenting in production. Stage 4, you have something running. And then stage 5, you're kind of building the next level to your point. So probably somewhere between stage 2 or 3. If you're still at that point, and I'm speaking to people here in the crowd, and you see a wide variety. I think one of the biggest problems we have right now with AI, every company when we're trying to target, obviously we're a business, It's like, are you building anything with AI? And so everybody's building something with AI, and then you start talking to them. Oh yeah, our product managers are all working with ChatGPT. It's like, no, not exactly what I meant. It's like, are you doing with AI? Oh yeah, of course, we're using summarization on Salesforce. No, not exactly that. And so there's a lot of there's so many shades of gray. It's very difficult to understand. But for us, it's if you're integrating Gen AI into your offering software or whatnot, and you're beyond the test phase. When I say test, it's just testing the water. That's where we start bringing value.
I think it would come down to how you quantify value. And so I think value should be enduring and it should be compounding. I think you can have very easy, quick wins from summarization, meeting tools, and these are all great. These are getting people into the mindset of being AI first. But I think, and you can use our product and day one, get fantastic value there, great. But to actually change the way that your company works takes a more systematic, measured approach where you're looking at the company or a workflow as a system. Where are the bottlenecks? Where do you need humans in the loop? One of our beliefs actually is businesses won't go to full autonomy. We're not seeking autonomous companies. We want to have good governance, automated DPIAs, GDPR. Everything's going to go back to how we're governed and what the incentive mechanisms of the game are. And so really by taking a step back, you can maybe go slightly slower to go quicker over 12 months, where I think a lot of people pour money into the flashy experiments and they work well for a little bit. But ultimately, again, the bottleneck is the culture, it's the human, it's the system of work.
Your turn.
My turn.
Yes.
Well, it's actually very similar to Johnny, even though we have a very different type of product. But like people typically come in for like a very specific use case, like some social media monitoring agent that tracks engagement and does follow-ups, or even something like for salespeople, like meeting briefings. But then over time, as they get value out of these initial use cases, it's really it becomes more of a mindset that like, oh, I can also do this, I can also do that, because we are building a box of like Lego bricks, and we try to make these Lego bricks very compatible with like all of the apps that you use and the types of functions that you might use AI for as like an individual contributor or a knowledge worker is typically for these things that AI is actually already very good and mature at, like classifying a lead, classifying an email, or extracting some information out of a 1,000-page PDF, or doing something with a CSV file. And all of these things, but these things are typically not the things that people come in for like on day one, but like quite quickly after they have some of these initial use cases, they'll discover that like, hey, this is where the real power lies, and becoming more like valuable for the business as a result.
And boys, can anyone that writes software can start self-healing, or does it work better on certain sizes, certain programming languages, certain libraries, certain agile versus I'm still doing a waterfall?
So the number one qualification there will be in terms of supported languages. I mean, today we do Python, JavaScript, and TypeScript. So that will be key. Again, still covers like 80% maybe of the companies out there. But the secondary thing is kind of the mindset. Like I think it's like a typical change management with like something new happening. You have kind of the early adopters willing to play, and then large majority that's actually afraid of it. And those who not be great first users. But as you said very rightfully, you grow, right? The minute you start using it for the places where it delivers you value, I think Gartner cornered it as intelligent automation in a way. You have to figure out where you can actually be successful or not, and not leave it to the humans to have to evaluate it, because they're going to get pissed off really quickly if you wrong most of the time. And then once they see those use cases, you can tell them, hey, it's pretty clearly that it saves you time. Then they're going to start coming up with the other use cases. Hey, how about can you deal with those other items? Can you add more languages? Can you deal with my weird integrations or problems that I have specifically?
Interesting. Yeah, go on.
It's funny because you mentioned about these early adopters, and we actually have like, we gave that whole persona like a name. Like we are specifically looking for these what we call like savvy tinkerers. Like, and they're not specific in like a job function or a role. They're like, we find like salespeople that really like, optimizing processes and tinkering with like, spend like an hour in our tool just to figure out how to best optimize it. And then, their immediate coworker might like, is like, yeah, just do it for me. And the same thing, like, you have that in every function. And these people that really are like these savvy tinkerers, they're like the best ones to start adopting, and they're, like they become like the champion within an organization. And specifically in this AI space where there's a bit of trial and error, I think it's important.
I think there's also a piece there, which is those savvy tinkerers are gold dust, but occasionally they can be pointed at the wrong problem. If you try to optimize or automate what's there, you're only going to be working in the kind of previous state of play. I think there's a balance where I actually want to get the strategic thinkers or the system thinkers to have the space to step back and say, if we were to completely redesign this and do it fresh, change how we're doing it, how might we do that? And maybe you actually don't need 3 of the steps, and so therefore those 3 steps don't need to be optimized at all. You can just get rid of them. And I think each month, each year, as tools and models, etc., get better, this is only going to become more prescient.
And yeah, I've actually 2 questions. Start with one. How much do you feel at this stage you're actually building for user needs and what the user wants versus against your vision and what you think is how much there is a pull versus push? Let's start from this side.
It is a good question. I mean, we're covering both cases, as I highlighted, proactively fixing things, right? Things that customers don't even know about. I mean, the most common thing that people associate this with kind of cybersecurity, right? You usually work on things to prevent somebody to break in. Once they're in, you're screwed, right? So that's the proactive thing, and you want to expand this to the whole application and robustness, right? And then the reactively is when people have a specific problem that's clear in your backlog. This sprint, you have to work on it, right? There, we're actually trying to say, hey, we can maybe take 10, 20, 30% of this and just get rid of most of the step, like remove 95% of the work. So the secondary piece will be specific use cases they need. The first one is things we're telling them, if you do this next year, you will be in amazing shape.
Yeah, interesting. Anyone?
First of all, I like the fact I wasn't the only one feeling embarrassed by the question, because for a while we were building towards a vision and a lot less to what we saw in the field, where we expected the market to head. And I think we're in this space where we've never seen any technology emerging so fast into enterprises mainstream. I think the process is repeating itself. We saw it, initially with web, and then we saw it cloud compute. Who's ever of those ages to remember what the experience was like. But I think the main difference was those were technology shifts that started kind of bottom up within the organization of pockets of shadow IT, and at some point it became kind of mainstream. I think this is the other way around. It comes with such a business promise. It gets pushed from the top, and then it's like, okay, but the expectation is, I think the biggest gap is, there's this expectation of, if I'm building something, it's going to work. And business people that don't necessarily understand what non-deterministic means expect once it's built, it's always going to work. And when it doesn't work, there's a lot of disappointment. And I think this is where the business implications are still not clear. Are you willing to disappoint your customers in what, if they're 3%, 5%, 15% of cases, there's positive ROI, but at 15% of cases, you're going to pay back customers. And people are not yet at that stage to get to that point. But going back to your question, because I was mumbling here.
It's good mumbling.
Good mumbling. Thank you. Always on my side.
Yeah.
But I think that we're building towards that vision. Because as product people, as most of the crowd here, we were trained to kind of slide to where the puck is going to be. But the puck keeps shifting. We're sliding to the puck, and it keeps moving. And we're trying to keep up. And I think companies like us, most of us startups, we need to start finding kind of a problem to sell to now. We're all kind of funded by this Ponzi scheme called VCs. And so at some point, we need to start making sure we can actually sell something.
Maybe actually to that point, there's actually like a third dimension, because like there's the your product vision, and there's like what customers want, but there's also like what we notice, we are kind of like chasing the innovations of the model providers. Like, and it's really cool. Like we see, like for example, Anthropic's Claude now has this built-in tool to spin up like a virtual machine container, deploy a file, write code, and then like do all kinds of crazy stuff, which is like super powerful. However, like, okay, how do you bring that in, like, productize that into like something that's super easy to understand and like can be used by, like a project manager at a large transportation company to analyze like huge CSV files. So like, and these things, they just get dropped on us every week, these kind of like innovations, and like, wow, how can we be the first to make that really useful in a way that actually fits the customer needs, but also the longer vision. And I think that it's kind of unique to this time.
That's interesting. So how much, the space between what the user needs and what the frontier models provide, do you see that actually expanding over time, or do you see that shrinking over time?
I'll jump in for a quick now because it kind of reminded me. There's this book, I think it's almost 10 years old. Thomas Friedman wrote it. Thank you for being late. That at some point technology evolves faster than human can adopt it. I think we're at that point. I think right now supply of new capabilities is far faster than the demand. Now, are they going to intersect at some point and it's going to change? I don't know. At this point, it seems like we're separating. People, and definitely enterprise organizations, don't have the ability to adopt innovation in that velocity, at least as of today.
And I think the whole piece can be simplified if you just look at the what and the how. And customers actually probably don't care that much about AI. They care about this process that they need to do that's critical, and they do it slightly different to everyone else, and it's their secret sauce, and we want to be more accurate. And how could be AI, and hopefully AI is going to get drastically better so we can collect that arbitrage, but there's going to be an increasing drift between the capabilities that through our products we're kind of distributing to customers, and customers still wanting to do the old thing slightly better. And I think if you get super clear on what you're solving's got nothing to do with AI, it's got something really personal to their business. The how can be this variety of fantastic models that get quicker and better and faster.
And I think it also depends on which problems you want to tackle with AI. Like if I look at the Co-Scientist project, I think the technology is not there yet. Yes, we have been seeing AI discovering, validating new drug and promising things, but what they really need is a way to rapidly test this hypothesis in a virtual lab, and or having, for instance, this team of AI agents that would replicate what researchers do. And this is much more complex than just having the model that has the capability to discover new things. So I think it's also to put into perspective which problem we're solving. Is it a productivity problem, or is this major problem for society?
Yeah, I feel we're too cautious. What wowed you in the last year or so? You say, wow. What was big wow moment that you whether it's users or technology, choose your wow.
Nano banana counts?
No, for me specifically, we've seen some users that are go really crazy. Maybe we call them the early adopters, but they see something, they just push it to production. They see, oh, I see it passed all the tests, push it through. Almost zero human handoff. They didn't even check for it, right? So I was in this case was correct, was good, right? I was happy, but clearly we know that the probabilistic systems are not always correct. And if that was happening in NASA, somebody will get fired, I guess. So there's kind of this craziness in some areas that people go there. For example, if you have a livable application, right? You don't need this high fidelity, it comes in there. You don't have people to deal with it. So you want to get a full autonomy that just pushes things and fixes things on its own. But if you're running a mission to Mars, likely you actually want to have very high human supervision, even if most of the fixes are actually coming from AI-generated systems. So,
I think I'm continually wowed by OpenAI's ability to catch the 0 to 100 million users. Obviously, they had their 3.5 moment, and that happened with Sora, this fantastic kind of generative video capability. Why don't we just kind of automate brain rot and have a feed where you just keep generating images and videos, etc., and how well that did and what usage it got. So it's not even the underlying technology. It's the thing that's made me slightly more bullish on them compared to Google's ridiculous distribution, is I think OpenAI still get the culture piece, and particularly with the younger generations, etc., they're still getting usage faster than anyone else.
Any wows? Must be some wow.
I think for me, it's seeing people who I thought would never use ChatGPT or AI actually using it to achieve something good, like my mom, my doctor, my German teacher, and I was like, wow, this is really a reality now.
I mean, for me, it's similar to Boris. Some of these, there are some people that do magic with this stuff. We have this customer in Copenhagen in Denmark, and runs a 2-person freight shipping company, and then reached out for a support request because it was self-serve sign up. Turned out he has a 50-step AI workflow that basically runs the whole business. And it's like it's insane. We were looking at it. Wow, it's like that guy built his business on like
You didn't know
on
it
our-
can do it.
no, exactly. And it's like, some people they're really, I mean, it takes a lot of tinkering and like, also the vision of how you would run it. But like, there's a lot possible these days, and some people are really squeezing the juice out of the,
cool.
the orange.
You have a wow?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the company I mentioned earlier. When we started the company and we started talking about the company almost 2 years ago, our vision was that we're going to start seeing non-software engineer building applications or capabilities and shipping it into production. And why would you need a software engineer anymore? Because our experience was after GPT 3.5 came out, we built our first feature was in the previous company we built. And after a few iterations, obviously with prompt engineering was early days, our software engineer came back and said, what the hell do you want from me? It's like, I'm not a psychologist, I'm a software engineer, go do it yourself. And so we went after this vision of, product people starting to build application capabilities without going through software engineers. We saw one company actually implementing the entire thing, but over time, because we kind of thought that, we're preaching to the choir, but not into reality, we started talking about breaks and balances, and we met this company that told the product person there told us, I don't know what you guys want with all this testing. I'm the product guy, I write the prompt, I ship it into production, no testing, I'll see the impact, I get the response, I fix the prompt, ship it again. All these processes don't need to happen. So I think that vision exists. It's not simple. You have to commit to it, you have to put the process in it. But once it's there, it supercharges the company to be able to move at a completely different velocity. I think most organizations are just not ready and not
Not
committed.
there yet. I